Welcome, welcome, welcome to this very special Sunday Meet the Miniaturist live stream. I'll give you guys a chance to join. We're coming up at the top of the hour. Hi, Charlene. I didn't even ask the question and you're telling me where you're from. Please, folks, tell me where you are joining from. Hi, Charlene. Thank you for telling me right off the bat where you're joining from. I love that. So tell me where you're joining from, and also shout out to Facebook and YouTube. I wasn't planning to go live on those platforms, but here we are. So welcome if you're like flipping through social media and finding this Meet the Miniaturist. Hey, Mahiri. Hi, Mahiri. Yay, Jamaica. Hi, Chicago. Doris, good to see you. It's been not too long since I've done a live. I love doing these live. I miss them too. I miss them. I miss doing them. I've been doing a lot of sort of edited Meet the Miniaturist, but I think it's so important that we do these live because it gives a chance for folks to ask questions and meet the miniaturist sort of like one-on-one and ask questions. So happy to be doing this live today. If you are just joining, thank you for joining. Say hello in the chat box. Hi, Jennifer in Northern England. But it's not too late for you. But it is late. So thank you for joining. Hey, Albany, great to see you guys. All right. So before we bring up my special guest, continue to populate that chat box and tell me where you're joining from. Hey, Jersey Shore. I'm going to just give you guys an update on what's happening by me. Firstly, I have several Meet the Miniatures, as I just mentioned. I've been doing a lot of Meet the Miniaturist podcasts. I've been doing them offline and editing them and posting them, but there are several that I've recently posted. So if you've missed them, please go out and look for them. I posted the links in the chat box in terms of how to find everything we're going to be talking about today. But several guests I had recently were based on they were open studio events. So essentially got to meet the artists, and they were in their working spaces as they get ready for the upcoming Chicago Tom Bishop miniature show. So folks like Chris Toledo from Chris Toledo Miniatures, Marina Neff from Deck to Farm Miniatures, Michael Robbins, Hey UK, folks who are coming in for that, Al Chaylaski, who is an urban miniaturescape artist. He does amazing New York City scenes. And coming up, I haven't finished editing that yet, but I am working on it, is Goja Suchadolska. I hope I said that right, Goja. So look for that in the next few weeks as I work on those edits, but there's really tons of great stuff. No, I sell miniatures. And so I have an eBay store. So there's a link in the chat box there. If you want to find my eBay store, there's a sale happening right now. It's an estate auction. It is ending today at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So go ahead and shop and play and bid and hope you win. But there are some really whimsical tiny treasures, art dolls, miniature fine furniture, pottery. There's lamps and lighting. It's a pretty balanced mix, but there are some also rare and more interesting, unique pieces in this sale that I think are noteworthy, like this lobster trap. There's also a folding cot that has all of the dirt and grime. It's just think 1970s folding cot that was put away in your basement, that was brought out for folks when they came to visit. But anyway, so check out that sale. It's happening right now in my eBay store. Link in the bio. And also importantly, if you're looking to sell a collection, please do reach out and have a chat with me. I'll talk about all of the options you have for selling your treasures, your miniature treasures. So there's also an FAQ on my website if you have questions before you want to talk to me. And then finally, if you are not subscribed to my newsletter, please do go ahead and subscribe, because that's really how you're going to find out what's happening in the mini world. You're going to find out about my estate sales. And of course, you're going to find out about all the latest news and live streams and edits on my podcast, Meet the Miniaturist. So thank you again for joining. Folks who are just joining, please say hello in the chat box and tell me where you're joining from. While I get ready to bring up my very special guest, Carrine G. She comes to us from Denver, Colorado, through Alaska. She's originally from Alaska, and she is just making her mark in the miniatures world in such a big way. And I've been following you for a while now, and you've got this amazing bulk of people who are following you and interested in everything you have to say. You have over 1 million followers on Instagram, and I'm so impressed by what you do, but I'm more impressed by your story. I love hearing about how you got to where you are today and all that you do in the miniatures world. So hi and welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me today. So glad to have you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in miniatures, and then we're going to see some of your structures. I have some videos to bring up while we're chatting.
Okay.
Uh-oh, did I lose you?
Oh, are you there?
Oh. Just cut out a little bit.
Oh, there you go. Are you there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. So, and I've just always been interested. I think a lot of people who do this, I've always been interested in miniatures and doll houses and things like that. And I always kind of had it in the back of my mind that it would be a fun thing to do, to build this brand dollhouse and make all the little pieces and do everything. But I was always just in the throngs of children and raising children and doing all that kind of stuff. And I kind of always thought just, someday down the road, it would be a fun thing to do. And a few years ago, one of my daughters left for school, and it left us with an empty bedroom. And I thought, I actually have the space. I could do this now. And all my kids were finally in school and full time. And yep, there's some of them right there. So that's not the entire clan, but that's most of them. And so I kind of thought, okay, let's give this a try. And so I went out on a whim and bought a dollhouse kit, and I immediately had buyer's remorse. And I thought, I just, spent $100 and it's going to sit in a closet and I'm never going to do anything with this. But I gave it a go and started in and just really enjoyed the process. And I really I've always liked puzzles. And I think that's one thing I really like about building the houses is it's a great big puzzle and trying to get everything to fit and how am I going to put it together? I enjoy building the dollhouse. I know most people really enjoy decorating and I love that too, but I really enjoy building the houses as well. And I did one and then I had to do another and I just kind of kept going.
I think you were telling me that this all came about. A lot of this came about because you wanted to find something to do for yourself.
Yeah.
Is that right? That, you had this time and now it was about, how do I fill this time for me? Can you talk a little bit about that and what that was like?
Yeah. So I mean, I have 7 kids. You saw some of them in that picture, and I've just spent years. My oldest is 27 now, and so I've spent 27 years, being a mom and I love it. And I homeschooled my children, a lot of them for a number of years too. And finally I was at this point for a number of reasons. All of them were back in school and they didn't need me all day long. Like they, I was needed for so long. And it was really kind of a period of okay, what do I do with my time now? And I still recognize that they needed me part-time at least. I didn't want to just, go get a job, I thought about it, but and I kind of, okay, what do I do? And this was about the time my daughter went off to college and I thought, oh, this is the time. Maybe I could give this a try. Maybe I could do this. Let's give this a try. And it just was been really fun. It's kind of filled this creative hole that I needed
Yeah.
to fill. And then it was not, then I got on Instagram. Just I mean, I started off following people because I needed ideas. I needed to see, I was interested in it. And so I started
Yeah.
following other people's accounts, and then just very, I started what I was building, and there was nobody around to show it. My family was they were pleasantly encouraging, oh yeah, sure, mom, go ahead, but nobody really appreciated what I was doing. And so I started my Instagram account as a way just to share what I was doing with people who I thought might actually appreciate it, and to learn from other people. And just little by little, it kind of grew. And now the Instagram account I spend almost as much time on that
Yeah.
as I do the dollhouse stuff.
I
And
bet.
so,
I bet.
yeah, it's just been kind of an interesting process, and it's been, and I think I was telling you, I don't begrudge my time with my kids, and I still believe me, I'm still plenty busy. I still have 3 at home full time,
Yeah.
and whatnot. But it's been really nice to have something that's more for me. And it's the Instagram thing has been especially fun to have people, oh, yeah, we like what you do. Maybe you
Yeah.
have a little bit of something to offer.
So let's take a step back. So it started with one house, is that
Uh-huh.
right? And
Hmm.
and it was, and you were not making at that point necessarily for yourself, correct? It started. This was your hobby, your collection, correct?
Yeah. Hmm.
Pulling in the pieces. I mean, ultimately, it became something else, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're selling now,
Yeah.
but and it also you're doing a fair amount of promotion on your Instagram account. So that's become this other thing. But
Yeah.
it started with one house that you were filling just
Yeah.
for yourself, and then it grew.
Yeah.
And not only did your hobby grow, the number of houses that you have
Yes.
had grown.
Yes.
So how many houses are you up to at this point?
Yeah, I'm working on, I think, number 10,
All right.
if you were to count them all properly. One of them was a remodel from my childhood dollhouse that my grandfather built, but I count that one too. So, but yeah, so I'm working on number 10 right now, and I don't know, I'm kind of out of space. We'll see what happens after this one.
There's always room for more miniatures.
So the miniatures I can add to. I'm not sure I can find more space for one more house. I've sold as much as I can sell. I look at
Right.
the ones that I've got around, like, I don't know if I can part with anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the Instagram piece, because I mean, did you ever in your wildest dreams imagine it would blow up to
Oh
where it is
no.
today? And what do you think that is? I could tell you my thoughts around it, and but I want to hear from you. Like, what surprised you most? What? Because there's not that many of you out there.
Yeah, it's really surprised me. I remember when I started, I thought, ooh, if I could get 1,000 followers, that would be so cool. And then I remember following a few people, and they reached 10,000. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
10,000. Oh my goodness, that's just so many. And a year or so ago, I got looking. I'm like, oh, could I actually reach 1 million? Maybe I could. And
Right.
and it's really surprised me. I look, especially because I look around at some of the accounts that I follow, and there's a lot of people I follow that I think are a lot more talented than I am, and they don't have the following. But I think part of it is
Yeah.
I do enjoy the Instagram piece, and I do, I enjoy, the reels are kind of fun to make, and I
Yeah.
enjoy playing with my dollhouses for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Making, trying to think, well, how, what would, if I lived in this little house, what would I be doing? Or,
Yeah.
what, how would you, would invisible many people use these things? And so,
Yeah.
I think people do resonate with that. Like, the comments I get from a lot of people are just, oh, I wish I could, I always wanted a dollhouse like that. I always wanted one. And I
Yeah.
think people enjoy being able to really see the details, and pretend like they're stepping in for a little bit themselves, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things I see is that you make miniatures very accessible, very approachable, very can do. And I know you're very generous with tutorials and you show how you do what you do, but the way you do it encourages people, I think, in a really big way. And I think that sets you aside, that you can have all of this. Look at this lovely dollhouse. It's just so lovely. But I think you make it look easy, but we know it's not. But you do make it look like it is achievable. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, and well, and I hope people do realize that it is achievable. I mean, I've done a couple of posts where I've gone back and shown some of my earlier stuff, and it was not very good. And I mean, I threw away most of the first few things I made, and the first dollhouse I made, I remodeled I don't know how many times,
yeah,
and even still, I'm still trying to, I still remodel a lot. Okay, no, I don't like this. Okay, let's try with that. And I think people sometimes see what I do,
yeah,
and they think, oh, I could just never ever do anything like that. And I want to say, well, I didn't know I could do it either. And I ask a lot of questions. I still do. I still go and see something that somebody
yeah,
did, and I'll say, well, how did you do that? And I try over and over and over again to see if I can get, and sometimes I can, and sometimes I can't, but sometimes I
right,
might find something else that I could do this instead. And that I like that. And
yeah,
so, that's one of the things I always really want people to, I hope people know
yeah,
that want to do this is just try it,
yeah.
and see what you can do, because you might be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think that shows through. And I think another big thing that really shows through is just how much fun you are having. Like your videos, it's just pure fun. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. And I think that is what's so inspiring, is what
They
you
are
see,
fun.
how much fun you have. But again,
Yes. Mhm.
this is not easy. It's
No,
not
I do
easy.
get that. I do get that comment. Oh, it looks like you're having so much fun. I'm like, yes, yes, I am actually. And
Yes,
it
you are.
is a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
So talk a little bit about where you get your miniatures from. What is the difference between the ones that you make versus maybe the ones that you buy? Where are you buying? How are you buying? Talk a little bit about that, because you have
Yeah,
a
I
lot
do.
of
I get that
miniatures.
question a lot. Where do I get it? Which it's, and I do find it funny. Sometimes people, I think they think like there's one store, oh,
Right,
well, I go to, XYZ over here on,
right.
and I find everything I need. And I do make a lot, and I'm making more and more as as I learn more. I'm making, as I get more tools, as I get more skills, I make more things.
Yeah,
What I don't make tends to be, a couple of things. One, if I'm like, okay, you know what, that's going to take me 10 hours and it would cost me $5 to make. I mean, to buy.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm good.
Right.
So I kind of like, oh, how much time and energy and money is this going to take me to make, versus, and fun, versus just buying it real fast. So that's part of it.
Yeah,
I do still look and say, okay, I'm not very good at food. I tend to buy almost all of my food. And so, there's stuff I know I'm not great at, and I try.
yeah,
With food, I'm always still trying. Let me see how I do this time, if I can make
yeah,
this. But I know what some of my limitations are, and so I'll buy that stuff. In terms of where I buy things, I follow a lot of people on Instagram,
yeah.
and I'll see what, and they'll show what they're making, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I want one of those. And so I get a lot of things that way. I
You
just
also it also looks like you mix things up. Like, I'm looking just
Mhm,
at this video and you can see some artisan pieces, you can see some
mhm.
commercial pieces, you see just a balance of everything, which I love. Also, you
Yeah,
have the Saint
that little
Leger
washer
Automata.
right there.
You have
The
That's a
wash.
vintage piece.
It is.
So
The basket was artisan.
it,
And the little washboard is just a standard factory
right.
made washboard. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And so
again,
it's kind of just a
yeah.
combination of finding bits and pieces all over the place.
And it's also how you put it all together. I mean, that has a lot to do with it. It looks so great together, and that's another reason why, like, I'd be flipping and flipping and go through. I would binge your account just to watch over and over again. So that has a lot to do with it. If you've really been able to put these pieces together in such a way that, again, it makes it approachable, makes it, inspirational, So
Well, I
yeah, kudos.
particularly enjoy being able to, like you said, put things together in certain
Yeah.
ways. And sometimes people give me a little bit of a hard time. Oh, well, you can't put a Dyson in that room. That's Victorian. Everybody thinks everything is Victorian.
Right,
and
right.
and I'm like, well, why not?
Why
I've
not?
seen shows where people live in old houses and they still have their modern appliances. And I think, I don't know, I did probably start off with thinking that it had to be a certain era or a certain and then I'm like, well, why? I like this
Why?
piece. It's fun.
Exactly.
I'm totally okay with having
Yeah.
a Louis Vuitton bag and next to a washboard.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with that because they both make me smile.
And you know what? At the end of the day, that is exactly it. This is your world, and this is about making you smile. So you need to live in this world the way you want to live in this world. And I tell the people all the time, this is how you decide to quote unquote play. Don't
Yeah.
There are no rules. There are no
Yeah,
rules here.
that's
And
right.
I think that comes through. Again, that is now that we're chatting through, I'm like, that does come through in your account, that this is your world and you're allowing people to come into it and play along with you. But I think while they're at it, they are getting inspired and engaged. And I think one of the reasons why this world is growing, it's a little world, but it's still
Yeah.
growing, are influencers like you who are showing people that they can too be involved in this little world and enjoy it like you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of fun, and I am so glad I took that leap
Yeah.
and just said, okay, fine, I'll go buy a dollhouse kit one day and see what happens, because it's
Yeah.
really been it's really been fun. And it's just, I mean, without it making it sound, it's changed my life. And I don't mean that to sound like it makes it sound a little bit more serious than I mean it to be, because I was happy before and I'm happy now, and whatnot. But it gave me something fun and new that was, like we were talking, just for me, which I didn't have before, which I appreciate.
Yeah, yeah. So you do make things, you mentioned things
Mhm.
that you don't necessarily, not that you can make, or maybe you don't want to spend 10 hours making.
Yeah.
But what is it your favorite thing to make besides structure? You do love to build
Yeah,
the
I
houses.
do. I do love to build the houses, and I love to take kits and make them different. How can I,
Yeah.
I'd like a wall here instead of a wall there. I'd like, I really enjoy that process. But I love building furniture. I
Oh
love
yeah.
designing furniture and building furniture, and those are probably my very favorite things to make.
Talk to us a little bit about the tools that you use to make your furniture.
Yeah. So for years, I used just, a ruler and a box cutter and a pencil to cut everything out. And now I've got a laser cutter, which helps a lot. I can get a lot more straight, a lot better straight lines and things, which really help. But I still will use my box cutter a lot. I use basswood. And basswood, which
Yeah,
is, it's
yeah.
soft. You can get it at hobby stores, and it's pretty cheap and accessible, and it's real easy to cut with a knife
Yeah.
and whatnot. And so I make most of my furniture out of that.
Okay.
And now I just cut it on my laser cutter because it's a little easier and it goes faster.
And what
But
is that? Is that what was that? Was that the first big tool you got? Was that
I got a 3D printer and a laser cutter at the same time.
Oh
So
wow.
my
You
very
are
first
ambitious.
my very first paid promotion, that I had last year sometime,
Yeah.
it was just enough to buy both of them, and and
Oh,
and so I
good
went
for
out
you.
and bought both of them,
Good for
and
you.
and so which was fun, and I have a lot of fun with them. And but yeah, and then I just I use glue and, just regular tack. In fact, I have some here,
Yeah.
regular tacky glue, and paint, acrylic
Yeah.
paint. And that's what,
Yeah.
or stain. That's what most of my furniture is made out of. So
Okay.
no nails, no screws, nothing like that.
Yeah.
So
Right. So let's go back to the Instagram piece, because I think that's such an important part of this influencer piece, is that you
mhm.
do have this really strong base of people who are watching you every day, over 1 million people. I mean, that's incredible. Talk a little bit about maybe some of the things you've heard from the people who follow you, how you've inspired them and encouraged them. And maybe talk a little bit about maybe someone's on who's watching now who maybe hasn't taken that plunge yet. What kind of advice you could give to them to ease their minds, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the thing that the comments that I've enjoyed the most are people who just say, "Oh, I always wanted to do this, and I've been watching you, and I went out and got, I went out and bought a dollhouse on Facebook, and I'm starting.
Oh,
What can I
yay.
do?" And I love hearing,
Yeah.
people that I followed on Instagram were so kind and so helpful to answer my questions that were probably kind of relatively stupid at the time.
No
I
stupid
didn't even
questions.
understand what scale was when I looked at it. I'm like, well, what's 1/12? What's 1/24? And, and people were so patient to answer some of the questions I had. And so I really like answering people's questions. If they're
Yeah.
trying to get through something, if they're trying it out, I message me. I will absolutely help you if I can.
Yeah.
And so I love that when people say, "Oh, well, I always wanted to do this, but I wasn't sure, and now I feel like I can, and I went out and did it."
Yeah.
But yeah, people who want to start, I say just start. And people ask me a lot, "Well, how do I get into it?" And I think,
Yeah.
again, they think that there's just some book that you read, or there's, it's like piano lessons. "Oh, we'll go find a piano teacher and an introductory book, and it'll walk you through it." And it's not that way. I mean, there are a few people who have had a few little, few books and stuff, but you kind of just have to jump in, I
Just get
think,
in it.
and just get in, and you won't know what you don't know until you try it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of what I did. Okay, I started building this house, and ooh, I really like to add lights. Can I do that? And so I did some research on the internet. Well, how do you add lights? And then I watched a couple of YouTube videos that people had put out on installing lights in a house, and I
Yeah.
spent the money and hoped that it would work, and it did. And so that's really how I did it. It was just,
Yeah.
okay, one question after another. Well, how do I do this? Or where do I go to find the answer? Well, let me go see if I can find somebody who knows. Or let me see if there's a tutorial somewhere. Or, if not, then let's just try and start
Yeah.
and see if I can figure it out.
Yeah.
So
Well, so why don't we see if there's any questions, and while we look and see if there are any questions from folks online, I want to talk to you about the balance that you have to strike between feeding the Instagram machine,
yeah.
feeding your love of this hobby, and you also sell. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
How do you
Yes.
balance all of that?
Well, and that is something actually that I'm looking at more and more this year, because my husband and I were just talking about that. I'm like, I don't want this to be a business. I don't want to go out and get a business license. I don't want to go do any of that. It's going to I think if I take this too far, it's going to take away the love of it. And so I've actually kind of thought about scaling back just a little bit on some stuff, because, like lately I've been so busy with some other, things. I've got an Etsy page that has a few things, and I'm like, I haven't had as much time to spend on doing that stuff that I really like doing. And so
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is a balance. It is, trying to figure out, well, how much time am I going to spend on Instagram, and
Right.
how much time am I going to do how much time do I have to actually build stuff, and so it is, I'm constantly saying, well, and then I have my family too. I still have
That's
3
right.
boys at home, and college kids coming in and out. And
Right.
so this is not my full-time gig. This
Yeah.
is still just a hobby. And
Well,
so,
it's good
yeah.
that you've been able to at least set some boundaries and say, hey, look, I can't, I don't think I can do or want to do everything. So maybe it's the selling piece I might not want to do, or because
Yeah.
that was actually one of the questions. How do people buy from you? So we're hearing right now, you
Yeah.
you do have an Etsy site.
Yeah, I do. And basically what happens is I get in the mood to make something, and I'll make 20 of them and I'll sell
Right.
the rest. And
Yeah.
then I may not ever make it again. I'm kind of like Costco, you know. I
Yeah.
decide that I want to do something and I sell a button and then I'm done. And
Yeah.
people ask if they can buy my houses, and I do sell one once in a while. I will not make them to sell probably anytime soon, like do a
Yeah.
custom house for somebody, because it's just too much time.
Yeah.
And
How much
and I
do you
probably
feel
won't ever do that.
how much do you feel obligated to the people who are following you to make sure that you are connecting and posting, and do you ever
Yeah.
stop and like hear, wait, where have we been?
Yeah, I mean, I try really hard to answer every sincere question. I
Yeah.
try really hard. I'm sure I miss some. I just had somebody get mad at me on Facebook over that. Oh, you're never answering. And I'm like, I'm trying. I promise.
Do they
I
know how many followers you
I
have on Facebook? You have
I
200,000 followers, I think.
Yeah, I got like 225, something like that. And then
Oh my
threads. I know
God.
I've got a bunch of, I never look at the stuff on threads. I'm awful over there because I don't pay any attention. But I do
Oh my
try
God.
my best to answer every sincere
Yeah.
question. And but I know I miss some. But so that's in terms of dealing with the people who follow me and stuff. That
Yeah.
is probably my number one thing, is I try really hard to answer comments and questions.
Yeah.
But
That's very sweet.
but I still I only have so much time.
That's right. And there's stuff that you want to do with that
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Someone else asked the question, any suggestions for a beginner? That's a loaded question.
Yes, yes.
But
And
where would you land with that?
it goes back to don't be afraid of what you don't know. I would say just try. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to start over. Don't get discouraged if it's crap the first time, because
Yep.
a lot of what I did was really awful.
Yeah.
Um, that don't think that you have to look like everything that you see on the internet,
Yeah.
on my page or whatever. Just try, and if you're having fun with it, you'll learn, and then you'll get better the next time. And
Right. Right.
yeah, and ask
Right.
questions.
Yeah.
I'm here. Ask me a question. I'll try and answer it.
Yeah. The miniatures world is very giving, very social, and very open to questions. So yeah, I would say the same thing. People, the artists, they're all very, very giving and generous with time and questions. And we did have one more question. Buying miniatures can be expensive. Yeah, we know
Mhm.
that. How
Yes.
much have you spent on any given mini? Well, we don't have to cover that specifically, but let's talk about, this is an expensive hobby.
It can be. It can be. And I do think it's a little funny. People will be like, well, how much does everything in your house cost? I'm like, do you go into somebody else's house and
Right.
ask them that?
Right.
And I would say it's like any hobby. You can spend as little or as much as you want. I do have my limit. And I won't say how much it is. I have my
Right.
limit on what I'm willing to spend on a little item and what I'm willing to spend on a piece of furniture or whatever. I have and as yet, I've never broken my ceiling. I try, it's a self-control. I also, there's a few things I would love to have. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I cannot justify spending what
Right.
that costs. And that's me, and somebody else might feel differently.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely, it can be an expensive hobby,
It can
but
be. Yeah. I
but
mean, there.
it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be. I know a few people who
Okay.
have beautiful accounts, and they specialize specifically in trying to make everything themselves and use what they have around the house, and they
Yeah.
have so much fun with it.
Right.
It just depends on how you want it to be. And so it doesn't have to be super expensive.
It doesn't, and you can mix it up, which I
Mhm.
think you've done a really, really great job, mixing up the artisan with the, let's say, the handcrafted or the
Right.
manufactured. It looks so well done how you put it all together. So, what is next for you? I mean, what are you working on anything special?
Well, here, I'll tell you. So right there, okay,
Ah,
that's a house that I'm working on. You can see it.
yes,
And it's
that's a big house. How
it
many?
is actually a big house.
It's a big house.
I have a front I have one front opening dollhouse that is downstairs, and and they're harder to get in the U.S. because that's what you all see. It's what you see in Europe and England and
Yes.
stuff, or the front, but they're harder to get here. And I had one downstairs, and but I
Ah,
wanted to redo it because
uh-huh.
again, I did things, and there's some stuff I really like, and there's other things about it that I'm like, okay, I know more now. I do something different, and so I wanted to replace it, and so I saved up my pennies, and I spent a ridiculous amount of money getting one shipped over here from the UK,
Oh,
and and
wow.
so and so it's I'm working on one to
Awesome.
replace that one, and so it's
Awesome.
bigger. It is bigger because I'm like
Bigger.
I'm kind of all right. This pulling up, trying to pull out all the stops.
Yeah. Well, it is just awesome what you're doing. We're just, it's so great that you're in this mini world talking about your wonderful work and sharing all your wonderful houses. So thank you for that. And thank you for talking to me today and us today. What a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon. We will continue to follow. I will plop all of your social links in the comment section. So look for that. But thank you so much for spending time with us
Oh, well,
today.
it's
It's
so
been
nice to
awesome.
talk to you.
Yeah. And thank you, everybody at home. Have a great rest of your day. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.